What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and I have done it again. I've completed another Yakuza game, this time Yakuza 5, and we got a lot to talk about. This is by a mile the longest game in the franchise, at least from what I've been told, at least up until Like a Dragon, right? So like the 7th game, but up until this point, and I've gone through from 0 now through 5. This game is long, this game is meaty, and for the most part, this game is, I would say, rather good. When I was thinking of the rankings in my head, I was thinking, okay, 3 is at the bottom. I'm sorry. 3 is going to go at the bottom, at least right now. 4 is, I think, above that, but it's not as good as 1, 2, or 0. And then I think of 5, and it's like, for a good amount of 5, I think 5 is better than 4. But the ending of 5 really upset me. And I don't know how to title that, so I don't know what the title actually is of this video at the time I'm recording this, but the ending of this game ticked me off royally. But I actually think the rest of the game is rather good. It's got some awesome intrigue. I would have loved to have played it when it came out, because the big thing, right, being Majima, you know, like I know that he lived, right? Because I had seen, actually, I do not know Majima's role in 6 or any of the future things, but I do know that for 8, or I think it's Infinite Wealth now, right? I remember the director of the game saying that Majima is going to be in the game, like his voice actor, but they got him like last second, so his role isn't going to be very big. I remember hearing that like maybe 2, 3, 4 months ago. So I knew, okay, well, he's going to appear in 8, so he can't be dead in 5. But that is a really great twist, and how they play around with that, with, I guess, kind of like the world knowing that Majima died, but then also when you do kind of character-specific things, right? When Kiryu gets into the car and he hears the radio and it says, you know, this leader here of Goro Majima has been murdered, and he gets really emotional, or Saejima when he finds out, like, there's some incredible moments, and they get hurt a little bit by the fact that, okay, well, you know he's not dead. Now, the game starts to plant a seed of doubt almost immediately that he may not actually be dead. When you first hear it, it is pretty believable, and there's really no reason to think otherwise. But then as the game starts to go on, even with Saejima, you start to kind of say, well, you don't know for sure. Maybe he survived it. We don't really know where he is. And then it becomes kind of clear, maybe 60, 70% of the way through the game. Yeah, he's not dead. We don't know where he is, but he's definitely not dead, right? So I don't know why they made that decision. I think it actually would have been more powerful for him to have just kind of shown up. So let's talk about different parts of the game. We'll talk about different character arcs, but I want to start with the gameplay, but very, very briefly, because the gameplay here, like, okay, and we've always said this actually for all these videos, the gameplay of these games very much don't, change all that much from one game to the next. Now, I do think there are changes from one game to the next game to the next game. This game is about as close of a copycat of 4 as humanly possible, because 3 of the characters return, and they are very, very much the exact same. Now, you do have the swapping of characters. You have Shinada coming in, right, the baseball player. I actually really don't like his fighting style at all. The throw, like, that's his main thing, right, it's to throw people. That's fine, but, like, a lot of bosses, you can't do that stuff. So when you're doing bosses, you end up just trying to do your baseball swing of a hit. Like, you kind of put your hands together like this, and you whack people, which I think that actually would break your pinkies if you did that. So you have to kind of like, you have to go like this maybe. I don't know. It's a joke. I really don't like his fighting style. And I really, in terms of characters, I didn't prefer him like at all. I think there's a reason why 3 characters return. You swap out the 4th that really wasn't good at all in the 4th game that I thought. And then the replacement for him is another character that feels very different, and I like his story to an extent, but I feel like they completely had no idea what to do with him at the end, and I think what we got at the end is a result of that, and that kind of just crumbles the entire thing. But the gameplay, it's fine. There's some annoying sections of the game, but it also plays part in some of the biggest fights I think this game has maybe ever had, or at least at the time, the biggest fights the game has ever had, when you, basically every character at some point fights like an army of people. Sometimes they do it multiple times, right? And I like it, especially Kiryu's towards like the first 25% of the game. I really like his showdown with just a literal army. They all have weapons. There's rocket launcher people. I mean, I think there's some really cool things going on there. Saejima does it as well. So combat, it is what it is. It's whatever. And I think it's always kind of whatever. In terms of the characters, I actually do like almost all of it. Again, I think maybe Shinada would be the one that I just don't really care too much about. Kiryu, I really like what they did with him, this idea that you don't really know, actually, at first, right? So, like, he left the orphanage, he's being a taxi driver, and I actually didn't mind a lot of the taxi driver mini games, whether it be the street races or whether it be delivering people down the street, like literally 30 seconds away. I didn't actually mind those. Those were actually kind of okay. And the intrigue of his character and people kind of watching over him, but are they watching him maliciously? Are they watching him to protect him? And why did he leave? And what happened, with Haruka and all that? And you see a little bit of it, and then obviously it starts to play itself out as the game goes on. I really liked it. I thought it was a very different kind of arc that he went through. And, obviously you forget about him for most of the game, because most of the game is not his. He's a really big focus at the end, which I feel like at times he was more of a focus at the end than he was in 4, but he was also less of a focus at the end of 5 than he was in 4. It actually depends on how you play the game, because you get to choose the characters, right, towards the end of the game. So, that was iffy. Then we get to Saejima. I think his was a wild ride. So you got another, like, prison escape breakout thing. You get all new kind of casting, right? Like, his cast is kind of just all over the place of who's around him. There's a lot of things that go on in his arc that some things, obviously, like with Baba-chan, right? Like, that kind of comes back. A lot of the stuff in the jail really doesn't, except for, obviously, him. And maybe, I guess, his cellmates, because they do return, right? But I liked that, actually, overall. It almost felt like A Way Out, which came after it, right? But, like, I'm playing it after I played A Way Out. But it felt like that. Then when you go into, like, the wilderness and you're doing, like, your hunting mini arc of a character, it's like you do quite a bit. I guess, if you think about it, like, Kiryu has, like, the taxi driving side thing. I think Saejima, though, is probably the most, like, big, because you got the whole prison arc, and then you have the whole wilderness, and you meet a faction, and there's a bear terrorizing it, and you have all of these side quests and all of these things that you do there, and then you just leave. And I actually didn't finish it. I just flat out left, but I did most of it. I wanted to, like, see it through, because it felt like such a big part of his story, although that didn't matter, like, literally at all. So that was a part that I don't know if that actually needed to be there. Then we get to Haruka and Akiyama. Great to see, well, both of them. I'm a big fan of both of their characters. Akiyama is quickly becoming one of my favorites now. I don't know, like, he's obviously, like, 6 is Kiryu's final game, up until where we're at right now. I don't know if Akiyama appears. I love that character. I think he's a don't spoil it. Don't spoil it in the comments, but he's a really great character, and I'm always down to see him. What they did with him, like, he definitely has a much, much, much reduced role, and I almost feel like he's in this game because they wanted to do Haruka, but all she does is the dancing and dialogue and stuff, so there's no combat. Then you also have to, like, tie the story elements together, so that's why he comes in. He's more of, like, the brawn, right, to her just dancing all the time. So they're more like complementary pieces to each other than they are fully kind of unique things, right? I mean, it's literally why there's still 4 arcs in this game, and they both share the same arc, right? They're not both unique. So I actually didn't mind Haruka's. It does get repetitive. Like, I did try to do a fair amount of the side stuff with her. More side stuff, I think, with her than maybe anybody else. Maybe Saejima I did as well. Well, actually, I tried, for the most part, to do more side things in this game than I have in the past, like, 4 and 3, like, at least. Hers, like, they're fine. I like quick time events. Like, I'm good at them. The dancing kind of mini games where you're just tapping the button when it appears where it's supposed to appear. I didn't mind it. Now, again, like, most of it is the same 1 to 2 songs. That's kind of the thing, right? She's got 2 different kind of styles of facing off against people, or that you have to, like, do things, and they're generally the exact same thing. So you kind of get good at them, you kind of get used to them, but they do get very repetitive, especially if you want to do everything. So I didn't mind it. I don't know if I'd say I loved it. My wife was, like, flabbergasted, where it's like, why is this, like, in the game? And I think I questioned that as well. Did it actually need to be in the game? But, her even story arc had some pretty cool things. You get a little Majima connection with Park-san. You get that mother-daughter relationship between them. Then obviously the thing happens to her, and it's like, holy God, like, it takes actually some pretty dark turns in Haruka's arc. And then, Akiyama is kind of just there to, like, pick up the pieces, talk to people, talk to, like, the higher executives, fight a little bit. He wasn't utilized all that much, and I don't know if I'd say, like, all that well. I think he was utilized pretty darn well in the finale. I'd say, like, that was his time to shine. With the Haruka thing, it was great to see him. It's always great to play as him. I really like his fighting style quite a bit. It's very, like, it's fun. It's actually very fun to play as. I think that's probably just the most basic way of saying it. But I always like seeing him. I just don't know if he really had all that much to do. And then you had the baseball player, which at times I liked his story. I liked some of the people that they put him with, like some of the supporting cast that kind of came into his story. But I don't know, like, sometimes it worked with kind of like feeling, I guess, sad for the guy because of what happened to him. But, this whole arc of the baseball and stealing signs and all this stuff, the thing is, in the moment, it kind of seems impactful. And then obviously bringing like Dojima or like Daigo into it, that does some things, and that just connects him to the larger picture. The fact that they went to high school together, they had that rivalry when they were children, but just to kind of get him as part of the bigger group. But the thing that really ruins it for me for that character is, again, the finale. I think they had no idea what to do with him, and we're getting to the finale, but I just don't think they knew what to do with him. So it kind of is like, well, you didn't really need him. You kind of did, because it kind of pieced everything together, and you needed to bring Daigo back. You needed to explain what the heck was happening with him, with the disappearing act and all this stuff. So you did need it, but I don't know if you needed a brand new character to do it. You could have maybe made it work with the 4 characters, I guess, that you already had. So I don't really have much to say about it, honestly. It was probably, specifically, like, the end of his arc was the most confusing. I couldn't really keep up with all the stuff that was going on, so I think it was the most confusing of the 5 of them. His fighting style, like I said, is awful. I just really didn't enjoy playing as him. When you get stopped in the street by like 50,000 times by all these gang members, I didn't like it. This is like, I don't want to fight. This guy is not a fighter. In fact, his arc kind of starts with him being a loser, and then all of a sudden he's some like pro fighter. He's like a pro athlete, and then he says like he does workouts like every single day. He does all these push-ups and sit-ups or whatever. But it's like in the beginning of his arc when he wakes up, he doesn't give me the vibe that he's a good fighter, and then he kind of is a good fighter, but he's more about like throwing people. I don't know. Then you have the finale, which, okay, most of the finale I'd say is good. It's really the end. It's really like the last hour of the game that I think it almost completely falls apart, and it really hurts it. Like it puts this game, to me, I think maybe I already said in the beginning of the video, I think this is the second worst one. Now, granted, and as I try to say with these videos, maybe I forget, I do love this franchise. It is wild, it is wacky, it is nuts. I overall love my time playing these games. Even 3, that I consider the worst, or this game I consider the second worst, I still like the game. It's just if we're ranking them up against some of the better of the games in this franchise, I'm not putting it at the top because it doesn't deserve it. And there are some things that legitimately made me mad at this game, so I'm going to voice those opinions. So most of the finale I thought was good. I liked the idea of being able to pick the character. Some of the twists were good. Some of them weren't. I guess finding out that I'm not going to be able to either say names, or I'm not going to be able to remember names, but the cop that you think is a good guy, right, helping Kiryu in the beginning, being the leader of the Omi Alliance, he's got terminal cancer and all that stuff like that. That being the twist was pretty big. I think I didn't expect that, so that did get me. But some of the other betrayals, including the final fight with Kiryu, I hate that fight. Actually, I really don't like that fight. Well, I like parts of the fight, but I just don't like how long it goes and how difficult, because you can't guard break or any of these kind of stuff. You have to sidestep. I used Kiryu's front kick 5,000 times in order to beat the guy. I did not like that. But no, most of the finale is fine. Most of the twist, it was good to see Majima again, so I really enjoyed that. I liked the battle to the death with Majima and Saejima on top of the tower again, because everything has to end at the top of a tower, even though I guess the game doesn't. Part of the finale is at the top of the tower, but not the entire thing, and technically the last couple shots of the game are not on top of the tower, so I got to give it to him. But that was cool, seeing that humanity from Majima, saying like, hey, I know how much Haruka means to Kiryu. We have to fight. One of us is gonna die, one of us is gonna live, and hopefully, really, I think hopefully he wants Saejima to win, because it's like if Saejima wins, then Haruka doesn't get shot. But then obviously they sent the baseball player over there, and that's where things really fall apart. I think once Shinada goes and he's fighting Baba-chan, I don't like that fight too much. I also just I couldn't get invested. Like, Baba-chan is such a, I think purposely, he's a pathetic person. Like, he's a pathetic character. He's a double crosser. He goes kind of with, I guess, with the wind or whatever. But he's very, like, just weak. Didn't he try to, let's say, eliminate himself just for the safety of YouTube? Didn't he already try to do that earlier in the game with Saejima? Like, he doesn't want to be around anymore. So when he picks up the gun, I actually gasped. I was like, oh my God. But then I remembered, because it had been a few weeks since I played it, I remembered, I was like, wait, didn't he already try to do this and Saejima, like, talked him out of it? It's like, what is with this guy and just not wanting to be around anymore? So I just, and again, like, that entire thing, he wasn't going to shoot Haruka. Now, I do have an issue with that as well. Why send him, of all people, a guy who kind of goes back and forth with his allegiance, a guy that is very just weak? He's a weak person. And so, as the villain, right, the Omi Alliance leader, why would you choose him to be the one that is going to need to shoot that girl if necessary? Why? Because he ends up not doing it no matter what. He was just going to leave. So that's one issue I have, that, like, the grand plan was to send this very weak, spirited person to do your bidding. That wasn't a good choice. And only one person, by the way. No backup, not somebody to watch him to make sure he does it. Literally just him. And then for the baseball player, it's like, he gets the call and he's crying, and basically they give him the out in the story. They say, here's your out. But even, like, Baba-chan wasn't going to do it. He was walking away. And then he comes in and he's like, well, I'm going to beat you up anyway because you may have done it and you need to be taught a lesson. Like, the conversation they had before the fight, I thought was horrible, because I think it was just forcing a fight to happen. And you could argue that they force a lot of fights to happen in the series. That one felt extremely forced. And then they give him the out immediately after, where it's like, yeah, once you brought these group of people together, there was really no reason to have the baseball. Zero reason at all, okay? And so that, I thought, was a really big issue. And then, the massive army kind of fights actually right before then. I liked being able to choose the characters. I liked Kiryu, fighting at the Tojo clan headquarters. Some of the fight was amazing. Some of the fight was about actually as good as you could get, at least at the time that they made this game, with the animations, with the quick time events. I mean, it's very dynamic, right? You're going from one location to the next, moving around, all this, again, quick times that you have to do, or you're going to be very screwed. I just didn't like the fight, like when you're actually fighting, when you're controlling it. I don't think Kiryu was the right character to be, and I think they do this on purpose. They pick characters that, like, if Saejima and his fighting style was doing that, it would have been much easier. But the style of fighting that Kiryu does, literally what he's capable of doing with a controller, is not perfect for the villain. And so it takes such a long time. It's very hard. And okay, it's like, am I complaining about difficulty? It's so much harder than anything else that it's annoying. Luckily, I had health potions or health, drinks and all that stuff. So I did make it. I didn't die or anything. But it was just very annoying, and it took forever. But, the cinematics were pretty cool. And then, him ending with, I guess, Haruka. Oh, my God. So Haruka, is doing this 15-minute speech. What a stupid idea. Okay, I really like Haruka. I really do. And I can't wait to see her in 6 or whatever happens to her in 6. I don't actually know. I know she's in 6. But all that jazz. She does this speech. She quits live on stage. All of the audience, there's like tens of thousands of people there. They're just staring at her giving the speech. She talks about this dad-like figure who's in the, he's in the mafia or in the Yakuza, and she's like, well, I love him, and he's done so much to me, and obviously even the songs are obviously playing off of him, like she's talking about him, right, like the themes there, but then she name drops him. I literally said, I told my wife, she was sitting next to me, and I said, oh, this is okay. You know, she's giving this speech. She's talking about this father figure that she loves and she appreciates, but she didn't say his name. I told my wife that when we were watching it. I was like, well, at least she didn't say his name. And then she literally says Kazuma Kiryu, and it's like, oh my God, why would you do that? So not only all the people that are there, now they know, but also anybody on the radio, anybody on video. I'm sure the thing is broadcasted, considering it's like the biggest stadium thing you can do in Japan. So like, why would you do that? And then she just books it. Then she just runs off. It's like, what a stupid idea. So I hated that. And then, you know, she runs, and I did like the idea. Well, the fact that he gets shot right on the tower, and then he fights at the Tojo, and then he walks back to town while bleeding out, while being destroyed, passes out. It's like, how did he even do that? And then, you know, obviously Haruka comes. I actually like, am I dreaming? Is this a dream? Am I dreaming? And it's not. I like that a lot. And I actually kind of like that they leave it the most ambiguous of any of these games, where normally it would end how the after credit scene ended, but then they would show the after credit scene and Kiryu would just be walking. He'd be totally fine, right? In this one, he passes out. He could be dead. And then that's where it cuts. Then the after credit scene is Haruka meeting him. And it still doesn't give full resolution to he could be alive or dead. You don't know for sure, right? So actually, because again, you got to think in the moment, at that time, I prefer that ending actually over other things. So overall, the ending was, at times it was fine, at times it was infuriating. And I think that's actually kind of a theme with this entire game. So I liked it overall. I'm excited for 6. 6 has been very, very split, I think, amongst fans. I'm excited to just play as one freaking character and see what they can do with it. I played 6 when it first came out, but I played it just very little, so I don't remember anything about it. And I'm excited for it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.